It's the year 2016 and guess what? We have yet another Warriors game to simulate the ancient massacre of thousands of enemy fodder by a sole person while numbing and killing our fingers at the same time. But this isn't another Dynasty or Samurai Warriors game, this is Arslan Warriors, or better known as Arslan, the Warriors of Legend. And a legend it very well could be, as this legend is one of the most surprising games I played from Omega Force thus far. Based on the newly 2015 TV animated adaptation of the heroic legend of Arslan, it revolves around the crown prince Arslan of a fictional kingdom called Pars, which is taken over by the neighboring nation of Lusitania after his father, King Andragoras III, falls victim to a treacherous plot led by some of his most trusted retainers. Arslan escapes, joins other companions, and must assemble an army strong enough to liberate his nation from the Lusitanian army. Supposedly, the setting of the story is to resemble historical Iran or Persia. Even some of the character names are taken from Persian literature itself. So if you happen to have grown dreary of battling foes in historical China, Japan, Greece, or even in the fantasy realms of Zelda, then now you have the Middle East. Arslan Warriors plays pretty much like your standard run-of-the-mill Omega Force Warriors title. You have a vast selection of unique playable characters to choose from, go through vast battlefields fighting off hordes of endless enemies on both foot and horse, occasionally fight a buffed up boss or two, then spend the rest of your time customizing your character's skills and weapons. Of course, even with all the blatant rehashing Omega Force is famous for with its Warriors games, Arslan switches things up immensely with the introduction of entirely new gameplay mechanics, such as charge shifts attacks and a card system, which sole purpose is to enable a variety of enhancements and skills to your character. The game is primarily split into story mode and free mode, story being the storytelling adventure, while free mode allows more freedom and customization. Online mode is also available, allowing you to join up with other real fellow companions to tackle story mode stages. The story mode is most likely the dominant mode you'll be playing and experiencing, and although it's generally very good, it does have one quirk that drags it down a little. You see, a lot of the storytelling time revolves around comic book-like low frames per second cutscene footage. These are unfortunately a little dull, unrealistic, and feels a bit out of place in comparison to regular in-game cutscenes, which are fully fluent and animated. About the only positive trait of these movie stills are that the game preloads the stage while you watch them. So instead of just a blank loading screen, you at least have something visual to look at. Apparently you can also freeze the scene. I don't get what the point of that is. So you can take a picture maybe? So now that you heard the basics about the game, what about the more valuable details about the gameplay, like how the combat differs and has anything really improved or changed from the last Warriors game from the previous year? Well, yes, a lot has indeed changed, and thankfully most of the changes are for the better. The biggest strengths are in the variety and difficulty of the combat itself. Taking a good cue from other games in the series, Arslan introduces primary, secondary, and even third weapons which, although limited in selection for each character, can be swapped out at any time during the battle. The unique thing about weapons is that not every weapon is entirely equal, not only in its stats and element, but the actual moveset itself. That goes for weapons of the same type too. That's right, some of your charge attacks actually changes dependent on which weapon you use. Think a sword is a sword is a sword is a sword, or a spear is a spear is a spear is a spear? Well, think again. Shamefully, a lot of charges are still shared between weapons of the same type, but it's nice to know that you have a lot more variety when selecting your weapon of choice. Another big innovation are charge shifts, which I spoke of earlier. Charge shifts is a charge attack combo extension that swaps between weapons for a stronger finisher. This results in your character being able to perform incredibly extensive combos with a great diversity and variety. The occasional bosses in this game puts up a tough fight, quite literally, as they are all armed with a shield you have to break first before being able to stagger and deal actual damage to them. Thanks to evasion though, bosses can be disrupted quite easily by executing a timed evade right as they are doing an attack. This effectively weakens them, allowing you to break their shield much quicker and thereafter do massive damage. Although I'm not a big supporter of cheap shielded bosses, this does help add some intense challenge to the typically easy difficulty found in these kinds of games. The new Warriors entry into the world of Arslan isn't a perfect game and has its share of downfalls and mediocrity. First and foremost, there isn't a ton of uniqueness in the weapons characters can wield. You essentially just have a variance in your sword, spear, and bow for the majority of the characters. Sure, there are some oddities such as a musical instrument and a paintbrush, but you aren't going to see laser shooting arm cannons and flying swords here. And then there's these so-called heat areas. Yeah, that's something I haven't got into yet. Heat areas allows your character, either on a horse or on foot, to call forth a rush attack that summons a huge army of cavalry, infantry, or archers to absolutely annihilate several screens worth of enemies. While it sounds fun and wonderful, it really isn't, and quite dull to be honest. Most of the time you're just moving a target around and waiting for your henchmen to do all the dirty work. On horse, you actually move with your horsemen, but other than moving, you can't really do anything else. The game does force you a lot to activate rushes in order to clear obstacles in your path to advance, which can really offset the smooth flow of battle. The game also has a lot of moments where more than one playable character are available on a stage, and you have to switch to one another. Switching, however, isn't freely done like in other games, but rather forced during critical moments of the stage. Therefore, you can't really hop back and forth between multiple characters like in, for instance, Samurai Warriors. Oddly, when this happens during free mode, you switch to a duplicate twin of yourself. Finally, the game itself doesn't have items you can equip, and you can't freely manipulate your character's stats simply by leveling up, but it does have the cards. Oh yeah, the cards. Basically, the cards grants you various skills and enhancements to your character's stats, but you have to equip them skillfully. One card may improve a certain stat but negates another, so you really have to find the best combination to use. There are also unique card sets you can equip that are derived from the TV series. Equipping these sometimes are better off than equipping random cards, as they give you very big bonuses. Overall, this is quite a gimmicky and ultra confusing system at first, so it's gonna go down in the list as another downfall of the game. I think having more sensible items you can equip would make a lot more sense and be friendlier to new players. Overall, Arslan, the Warriors of Legend, although feeling a bit unfinished and unpolished, is a great addition to the never-ending Warriors series. For a series that has been getting recently stale with the lack of change and innovation, this game revitalized the series by introducing a lot of new, refreshing ideas and gameplay mechanics into the mix. If you ever have a chance to experience it, from being a beginner button masher to a veteran who loves technical combat and gameplay, I highly recommend this game. And I truly hope Omega Force continues to follow the footsteps of Arslan, the Warriors of Legend.